Okay, we're live with Fritz Springmeier, good friend of mine for quite a while. Hello, Fritz.
Hello.
So we did an interview earlier, but the audio was just bloody bad. And we want to kind of like redo this. We were talking about the postmodern destruction of the education system and transsexualism. You wrote an article on Facebook, I believe, about, this stuff where they're, little Johnny thinks he's a 2-year-old girl, so he must be a 2-year-old girl, as an example.
All right.
How did this all begin?
You mean how did my article begin, or how did transgenderism begin?
Well, I mean the history of transgenderism, but what inspired you to do the article? Because I remember we did the interview. I was wondering, did that inspire that article, or because that was a good interview?
I don't remember. I recently wrote an article which had the title Genesis 1:27b, male and female, he created them, on transsexualism, which is now called transgenderism. And the thing that inspired that is I realized I had something of value to contribute to the subject, and I had written a 19-page article back in 1986.
Mm-hmm.
So I used the thinking of that article as the core of my recent revised, I guess you could say, it's not a revision, but a short post on the subject. Basically, I was just trying to I was trying to document three things. One, that there are some people that actually legitimately have a problem, that they're not distinctly into the category of male or female. They actually have situations in their body that have to be clarified because there's confusion there. And this happens in like 1 out of 1,000 people that are born. So there is actually a substantial number of people that have legitimate issues. It's not something that's just in their heads, or they're like, oh, self-loathing, or they're just anti-God or something. There are people that are actually born with situations.
Yeah, the hermaphrodites, but that's rare, right? Is what you're saying.
Well, 1 in 1,000, that seems like rare, but when you think about how many thousands of people there are in the United States, you realize there's a lot of people that have this as a problem. And then the next thing that I tried to document, or I actually did document, is that within the occult world and Satanists, they cherish this whole thing of being an androgynous, being bisexual, having both their male and their female. And you'll notice in the movies put out by Hollywood, they really get the women acting macho,
yeah,
and male-like, and they'll have the men acting effeminate. It's hard to find men who are really men and women who are really women.
It's hard to find
nowadays.
The old John Wayne type movie where it's, it's now like this Hunger Games movie. I remember that was out. The one guy, Peter, he was like he was a wuss. I mean, he was kind of a beta, if you really think about it. And then the woman was like the alpha. It was weird.
Yeah, exactly.
And so now you go to college now again. I think you went back to school to get a degree.
Yes, I am.
Physics, right?
Well, no. My degree is in design and drafting with computers, but I did have to take a physics class, and I was astonished that the physics instructor, who I thought would be real 3D,
Yeah.
He's standing in front of the class and he goes, there is no truth. Everybody has their own truth. There is no reality. Everybody has their own reality. And I was looking around the class and they're all like shaking their heads and agreeing with him. I could see I'm the only person in the class that believes that there is an objective reality, that there is one single truth, that it's not everybody comes up with their own opinion and calls it truth.
Exactly. And, you know, I've noticed that it's like a kind of everyone's relative now. They have no morals. They just, well, do as thou wilt. You know, I believe this. So, you know, I believe in communism. So, you know, I'll go force my view because that's what I believe is reality, even though, and even though it might not be, you know, but I have my own reality. And I see this in this whole transgender thing. You have like people claiming now they're animals and men claiming they're women and vice versa.
Right. Right. Supposedly they have this woman that's locked up in a man's body that they have to release from prison, you know, and that the analogy is like, oh, what's his name? I'm spacing off his name. Came in and out of my mind. Who recently died, and he had changed the shape of his nose and tried to whiten his skin. Okay, I'm having a senior moment here, but you know who I'm talking about, the singer.
Yeah.
He was he came from a Jehovah's Witness.
Oh, Prince. Or Prince.
Anyway, was he trying to release his inner Caucasian by doing that?
I mean, oh yeah, I mean, I remember that he tried to look. Oh, you mean Michael Jackson?
Yeah.
I got it confused with Prince there. He was another one. He was actually a Seventh-day Adventist and became a Jehovah's Witness. And then I've heard that since he died, now they're actually trying to the governing body now is trying to get his money.
Really?
Yeah, I've heard that somewhere. I can't remember where I heard that. I'm not 100% sure.
It shows the greed of those people.
Yeah, I think I sent you a link to actually an article or something on that. Like they may be trying to go after this guy's money. I mean, you know, they want it to.
You mean Mike Jackson's money?
No, not Michael Jackson's. Prince, because Prince.
Oh, Prince! They're trying to go after Prince's money.
Yeah, Prince was even richer than Michael Jackson. I think. I'm not sure about that, but that's what I heard on like it was some kind of radio show. Some kind of insider came and said, well, yeah, they're trying to get a hold of this guy's will because they're trying to use a loophole while he was a Jehovah's Witness. So therefore, his money belongs to us, you know, because he left no heirs.
Wow.
I mean, it's pretty amazing. And
yeah, truth is stranger than fiction.
yeah, I mean, it sounds like something out of, you know, I hate to give this analogy, but a Walt Disney movie. I mean, of an evil, like, you know, overlord, king, you know, evil oligarchs trying to steal money of some, you know, deceased prince, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Very bizarre. But in one part of it, you talk about, you did interviews with various clergy, even Mormon ones, and you realize that none that you interviewed realize the small minority from birth do not fall distinctly into. Okay, so these are the hermaphrodite thing. Now, in the ancient gods that the pagans worship, right? Were they like hermaphrodites and you even
a lot of the gods, some of the gods anyway, were bisexual. That's true. And that was the ideal. You look at pictures of Baphomet, and he's got the sexual organs of male and female. So yeah, that was their ideal. So then the third point that I was making was I was documenting the reality that there's an agenda behind this whole transgender movement. You know, they took Bruce Jenner's transformation, which could have easily been a private thing, and they made it into this public spectacle, this public event. And why did they do it? Well, you look at that and it's very obvious. It was planned, and it was planned so that they could support an agenda. And then you see all this politics coming in where now whatever you decide you are, you can go into that restroom.
Yeah.
You know, and they want us to support these fantasies.
Yeah.
And if we don't, they're in the driver's seat. It can be, you know, you can get 2 years in Canada for speaking derogatory about a transgender because that's considered a hate crime. So we're not even allowed to debate. We're not even given freedom of speech anymore.
Oh, in Canada, there was this one guy, I think I researched him. It was this Augustus Sol Invictus. Now, I don't trust this guy, obviously. I'm pretty sure you maybe have heard of this guy. He's this Thelemite.
Oh.
Yeah, but he actually got banned from Canada because he had fascist imagery on his website. Like, just, he's not a fascist, but he had the old Roman symbol, and all these leftists assumed he was some sort of neo-Nazi and started rioting in Canada to get this guy, prevent him from entering Canada. They actually forced the Trudeau to close the border of Canada. Now, what's ironic is Canada is going to accept all sorts of, you know, refugees from all these Islamic countries, and who knows how many of them are terrorists, and how many are not, you know, I don't know, but there's a lot of terrorists hidden in there, and yet they're not going to accept this guy in just because a symbol he uses, or because he doesn't align 100% left.
Yeah, that's exactly the way it works.
I mean, it's just completely ironic, and this guy I would think would be welcome in. I mean, he's you know, I thought they would want to him to culturally enrich Canada because he's a pagan or something. Because that's usually what I see now. It's just, you know, oh, you know, Christianity's bad, and, you know, they put paganism, Islam, Judaism, all these other religions on a pedestal.
Yes, they do.
And, you know, now Mormons are being put on a pedestal because, you know, a lot of Mormon leaders are coming out and attacking Donald Trump recently.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's just like a bunch of, you know, anti-Christian groups being put on a pedestal, while Christianity, especially, you know, whether it's in the biblical variant or, you know, maybe a traditionalist Catholic, or, you know, an old, you know, like a Russian Orthodox is under attack. They accuse it of being homophobic. Any old form of Christianity is under attack.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Years ago, I tried to put an ad in a paper, and I told the newspaper people that I had an attorney that would tell them that they would not be sued because there wasn't anything libelous. What I was trying to do was advertise books that people could get more information on the Watchtower Society, showing that the Watchtower Society had lied to their people. Mm-hmm. And the newspaper would not run my ads. You think, you know, that these corporations are greedy, but there are certain things that they won't do, and they won't support Christianity. They'll support watered down Christianity. They'll support Mormons. They'll support Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah.
So all this thing about supposedly the system is persecuting the Jehovah's Witnesses, persecuting the Mormons. No.
Yeah.
That's more hype than reality.
Exactly. You know, from what I've seen, they win a lot of their court cases in westernized countries. The only place is, you know, Russia, which, you know, I think Russia may be standing against the New World Order. I'm not sure, but Russia seems to be kind of like not letting the Jehovah's Witnesses get their way, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And like a lot of, you know, Hungary, countries like that.
Russia's become the nation that's trying to stand up for Christian values. It's like totally flipped. The United States used to be considered the Christian nation, and now it's Russia, which was atheist, that's turned into the nation that's Christian, that's defending Christian values.
And, you know, it's like we have this is a new age term, right? Paradigm shift.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, is that what the paradigm shift that the New Agers believe is? Like,
well, paradigm shift means that your worldview shifts in a major way. That's what a paradigm shift is. And Yeah, you could say that what Russia has gone through, throwing off atheism and moving towards Christianity, is a paradigm shift, definitely.
Yeah, and so I was wondering now. There's this guy Alexander Dugin, and I have a friend from Poland. I think you know him.
Yes.
Yeah, very good researcher, very bright man.
Right.
I'm trying. He actually has somebody he wants to get on here. This is not going to be today. I'm talking about this is some other day. I'm going to interview this guy from Poland, not my friend who's emailing you. He has a contact. He's very underground the way he does things. He tries not to. He doesn't want to be seen. Essentially,
well, that's good.
I can understand him. I mean, he's doing some very dangerous and deep research that I can't even comprehend. I mean, he's
very well informed. So when he goes in and does research, because he's well informed, he knows how to fit the pieces together. He's got a good view of the bigger picture. He told me about Bandera, who's he's the guy who founded the Ukrainian insurgent army, and he's a pedophile, he's a Satanist, he's a neo-Nazi.
Yeah.
And so your friend was the one that shared how this Ukrainian Nationalist Battalion Azov, their badge is got the black sun.
Oh, yeah.
And which relates to Wewelsburg Castle, which relates to Aquino and the mind control. I've been helping a few people with the trauma-based mind control, just a few, because you don't want to take on much. But one of them was there doing Illuminati occult rituals at that Wewelsburg Castle, and right there where that black sun logo is. So I was very interested in what your friend was sharing with me.
Yeah, he definitely knows, and he's a Bible-believing Christian too. He's a saved man. He actually helped me in a lot of my struggles as well. Me and him would pray together a lot, and we still do. We would pray for each other over the internet. He's been attacked various times, and I can understand when you get into this research, there's people that don't like you. I did an interview with Barry Shamish that there was a certain individual who kind of made it. They said something that and it was a little fleshly. We used language, and I try not to. And I don't condone using that language, and I'm not going to use that language ever on a show again. I shouldn't use that language at all as a Christian. So I mean, I'm publicly repenting of that right now. But basically, Barry Shamish, he mentioned like his emails were getting just completely flooded, and completely like most people like my computer, I'll even say runs slow at times when I'm researching this stuff.
Right.
Like it's like there's like people on the other side that are like, no, we don't want him knowing this, and Barry Shamish was basically saying he thinks there's somebody hacking his computer and spamming him.
Right.
And even deleting his articles on things.
Oh, yeah.
Now, have you ever had that happen?
Constantly. When I built a website, originally my pintracks.com, I wanted to use it as a blog. And when I initially started trying to use it as a blog where it was open to people to make comments, like on Facebook, I was being spammed about one spam a second. I mean, it was just flooding in. It was just bam, 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 bam. And I asked other people, do you have something like this? No, nobody I talked to had it as bad. And so then we put on a filter where you had to go through and you had to sign in and do all of this. But then that just took, by the time a person would wade through all of that to actually make a comment, it made it unhelpful.
I remember that too. You talked about that on your Facebook account. Your entire website was down, right?
Well, yeah. Well, that's happened a number of times. So It's happened a
like, I
number of
think
times. So
they
what
wrote
I did was,
yeah.
is I shifted over to Facebook. And then on Facebook, if somebody writes a bad comment, I can just block them and I don't get the spam.
Oh, yeah. That's what I like about it too. I mean, I used to have this person who would spam me. There was this new ager. I'm not going to mention her name, but she would, I don't know if she was new age, but the stuff she was saying sounded like kind of confusing and could be perceived as new age. And I'm like, I don't want this person constantly, they would keep sharing, this stuff. And like some of it was good information about the New World Order and stuff, but then they would talk about like energy crystals and Christ con. I'm like, no, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to let this person share on my account anymore. And I was wondering if that person was intentionally doing that because they knew that I'm a Christian. Why would I, just let a bunch of New Agers just start posting on my Facebook?
Right.
So, I mean, I have no idea. I'm actually wondering, is there like an intentional, like just assault on, Christian Facebook accounts, Patriot Facebook accounts?
There's people whose jobs are just simply to be trolls and disrupt things like this.
Yeah, well, it's like I was reading an article about how the Chinese have like an army, and then there's a neo-Nazi Andrew Anglin, who people are even saying he's not even a real Nazi. He just is there to upset people.
Right.
I mean, he goes around and makes these posts and makes the right look bad, essentially. Like but now tell us a little more about like you were talking about Odessa earlier, about how my friend gave you that information. I was about to mention Dugin. Now, Alexander Dugin, from what I hear, is heavily involved in the occult and secret, even though he is a Russian old believer. He's infiltrated, is what I've heard. Now, do you think this Dugin guy is dangerous? Now, I've heard that Vladimir Putin recently kicked Dugin out of his position not that long ago in the university.
Well, that's good.
Because this guy, I mean, if you read Dugin's garbage, the guy's very dangerous.
Right.
I even have his parts from his book that translated into English right here. And the stuff he says he wants to do. Now, the only thing I think, Dugin, for example, he's endorsing Trump, which I think is a great thing. I'm endorsing Trump. I hope he's a good guy. I think Trump seems to be the most anti-New World Order guy. But I'm wondering, is Dugin just doing this to make Trump look bad? Or is, Dugin genuinely care about Russia? What is with this guy?
Yeah, who knows?
I mean, like...
I couldn't tell you.
It's like this guy, he says he wants to infiltrate the Russian Orthodox Church with Buddhist ideas and stuff.
He's definitely got a few screws loose if he's for real.
Yeah, I mean, and I also noticed, similarly enough, he has a book where he talks about how he wants to destroy the United States with separatist groups and Russian special forces and all. But, which, I can understand why Putin would take him out of his position, because that's just terrible for diplomatic relations when you have a guy like that, writing stuff like that publicly out in the open for everyone to see, But then the reason why you're saying, well, how does Dugin relate up to all this transgender stuff? Well, I've noticed there's this weird thing. It's a type of, they follow, I guess, a form of occultism called, was it the Evolian school or something?
Oh, you have to tell me about it.
The traditionalist school of the occult, where they think all religions are the same. Like Islam and Christianity and Buddhism, they believe it's like, it almost sounds like early New Age ideas, Blavatsky and all that.
All paths lead to God.
Yeah, it sounds like that. But I even have I'll send you a link to that. Was it the traditionalist school? And I'm not talking about traditionalist in like the political sense. I mean, I would consider myself kind of a traditionalist in the political sense.
Yeah.
But the traditionalist school was a group of 20th century thinkers concerned with what they considered to be the denials of traditional forms of knowledge, both ascetic and spiritual, within Western society. So basically,
Well, jumping in here, after Vatican II, a lot of Catholics took the stance that if you were simply good at whatever religion you believed in, you would go to heaven.
Yeah.
There was a Catholic couple that went to Bible studies that seemed to be really spiritual. Not all Catholics are not Christians. There's some that really love Christ. So I thought that this couple, because of the way they acted, were, having Bible studies and loving the Bible and everything, were very similar to other Christians. So my family and them went on holiday together to the Fort Stevens area where we camped out. Mm-hmm. And so Sunday came and we decided to have our own little church service there in our tent area. And it came out that they believed that if you were good at whatever religion, he said, yeah, if you're a Buddhist and you're a good Buddhist, you go to heaven. I go, so you mean to tell me if somebody's a Satanist and they're a good Satanist, they're going to heaven? He goes, yes. Oh. I was like, oh, whoa, I misunderstood. I miscalibrated where these people are. They're not Christians.
Yeah. Definitely not.
That's that attitude that you're talking about.
Yeah, and I've heard it before, and it says, according to the traditionalist school, the primordial and perennial truth is manifested in a variety of religious and spiritual traditions. So they think that, I guess, they say it's a type of comparative religion, but I notice a lot of it's associated with Sufism. There's a Muslim, what is his name? He goes on this. Have you ever heard of Morris 108?
No.
Well, he has a pretty decent show. But despite that, he's kind of like this new agey guy. But he talks about the conspiracy, in the third world and all. But they have this Emir Hossein, and he tries to say that Islam and Russian Orthodox should be one religion. I'm like, what? It's like they're trying to promote this. Well, all religions should cooperate type garbage, and they're doing it from both sides of the political spectrum as well, left and right. Like, you have a lot of the Moonies and the Mormons on the right. Well, on the left, you might have, Wicca cults, Islam, Judaism, and on the right, far right, you have Islam and, Orthodoxy, being forcibly molded into like a one New Age religion. Like, oh, well, they have some truth too. I had a Russian Orthodox. I thought he was a Christian, but he said, well, no, Islam is is a brother faith. And I'm like, what? Islam is like Christianity. It's equal to Christianity. I had a whole argument with a bunch of people who were calling me a fanatic. These were people who were somewhat informed on the New World Order. I don't know. There might have been a few communists amongst them too. But I was saying, well, I don't believe in forcing my religion on anyone, but I believe, that Jesus Christ is the only way to heaven. And they just freaked and started comparing me to Osama bin Laden. I mean, this sounded like something you'd hear from liberals.
Right.
Like, and I didn't say do something bad. I was just advocating biblical Christianity, and I was looked at as a religious extremist.
Right. Well, see, at the top of things, Wes, and this is what I was breaking down and explaining in detail in some of my public talks, is the leaders of all these different groups are members of the Illuminati. Yeah. Like your governing board, the key people within the Watchtower Society that are decision makers, and it's just a few key people in each of these religions, are actually Illuminati. So at the top, it all does connect. And so Mormonism, Jehovah's Witnesses, and many of these Christian religions, take Billy Graham, and some of these other, Norman Vincent Peale, and some of these other big, powerful ministers, they all connect at the top. And so sometimes you can see that the partitions between these religions are fake. So I had a friend, and
There's background.
He lost his job, and so I told him he could have one of the rooms of my apartment, and he comes in, and he was Mormon, and so he went down to the Mormon employment agency to get a job, and their employment agency is very good. And Mormons will employ other Mormons. So anyway, he comes back and he says, "Well, I got a job." Well, where did he begin working for? What job did the Mormon employment agency get? They got him a job on the staff of the Church of Scientology.
Oh,
So
wow.
these are the little things that happen out there that show you that the partitions between these religions are false.
Oh, it's just like you didn't you know something about the Jehovah's Witnesses and the Mormons cooperating?
Well, I'm sure that there's been some of that behind the scenes. There's been cooperation between the Jehovah's Witnesses and other organizations. I was going through a United Nations reference book at one point, and I saw that they listed the Watchtower Society as a member of their UN organizations. I was like blown away. What? But if you talk to a Jehovah's Witness, they don't know anything about the Antichrist.
Oh, yeah, and they'll get mad. Trust me, I know.
So, yeah, the partitions between these groups at the top is artificial.
Yeah. And now there's also the case with Billy Graham. His Mason, everyone, Billy Graham's a good Bible believer. No, he's not. I mean, isn't he the same one who said, well, you can go to heaven and, they worship nature and you can go to
Yes.
heaven? Yeah.
And he said that if the Bible didn't exist, that Mousy Tongue's red book would be a good substitute.
Oh, wow. So he actually promoted Maoism even?
Oh, yeah. When he went to communist Russia and communist China, he's publicly said there's no persecution of Christians in these nations. And, the Christians that were suffering in prison, the pastors and stuff like that, were pretty outraged because communist Russia and communist China came down very hard on Christians.
Well, maybe the ones who follow Billy Graham are not in prison. Yeah, I don't think you'd go to prison following Billy Graham. I think that's like the the very antithesis of Christianity now, you could say. Now, Billy Graham also made a statement. You said you saw his Masonic membership.
Well, somebody else did, but I have seen enough proof to realize he's a Mason.
It makes sense. I'm pretty convinced of it. I mean, there's a book called Billy Graham and His Friends.
Right.
Yeah. Have you ever read that?
Yes. The woman who wrote that actually edited my Bloodlines of the Illuminati book.
Oh, that's amazing. I think you quoted it in one of your books. There's a part in, I can't remember which book, where you talk about Disney and mind control.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if it's in Bloodlines of the Illuminati, but I read it online. And I think you sourced Billy Graham and His Friends, which I thought, well, that's a pretty good book. And David and Donna Carrico told me about Billy Graham and His Friends.
Yeah. So, I have a Japanese, well, he's dead now, he's passed on. And he is a Christian minister in Japan, very conservative. And when Billy Graham came to Japan, he picked the most liberal Japanese minister to be up on the podium with him. So he is promoting liberalism, ecumenicalism, and whatnot, World Council of Churches, all that, by having this guy up there on the stand with him. Instead of picking someone who was solid Bible believing minister, Bible preaching minister, he picks this guy.
Well, it's like, I've noticed there's like this weird thing of these pastors meeting up with the leader of the Moonies, which is one of the most blasphemous cults, more blasphemous than the Jehovah's Witnesses or the Mormons. Well, I don't know, maybe the Mormons are pretty up there, but the leader of the Moonies, I think, claims that Jesus failed.
Yeah.
I mean, and he claims that he's the Messiah. I mean, that's absolutely antichrist.
Yeah. Moon claimed he was the Messiah. Reverend Moon.
Yeah, and there's Christians trying to even, or so-called Christians, I should say, that are trying to get in, bed with this man.
Yeah, I believe Pat Robertson, as I remember, was one that dealt a lot with Reverend Moon. And then Pat Robertson's a Freemason too, along with Robert Schuller.
Yeah.
Some of these other big Christian names.
And now back on the topic of the transgenderism. We were talking about a thing in part of the interview, which it didn't fully upload, called Otherkin. What is your position on that? I still do have the old interview on a Vocaroo thing. If anyone wants to listen to it, I'll put that in a link in the video. The older interview, which was pretty good. But what is your position on this whole Otherkin thing? It actually sounds like MK Ultra.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to beg off on that because I don't know what movement you're talking about.
It's like this thing where they identify as animals.
Oh, that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Oh, would you say that's people being demonized?
Oh, I would say it's definitely demonization.
And also within the trauma-based mind control, they have when they build these systems of alters, these parts, they generally build some of the parts to think that they're animals. So this will help, it will help give cover or color or whatever to the trauma-based mind control and all these people that think that they're animals.
Exactly. And there was something I remember reading, like there's like in the Disney movies they had, what was it, the talking teacup?
Yeah.
Is that, you mentioned somehow that's in mind control?
Yeah, they use these Disney movies where a doorknob talks. Let's say the programmer wants a dissociated part of the mind, a split of the mind, to think that it's a doorknob. They can use these movies to help them with the programming to dehumanize that part.
I have the Vice article here. Otherkin are people too. They just identify as non-human. Now, you said I believe that at your college there's a girl wearing cat ears.
Yeah. She came repeatedly for months with ears, and so one day I just decided to because within the trauma-based mind control, they make the sexual alters think that they're cats. That's standard procedure. So I expected, if I asked her, that she was going to say they were cat ears, but I was just testing the water. So I said, "Are your ears rabbit ears or cat ears?" And she said, "Cat ears."
Huh. Now, do you think she could have been under some sort of mind control?
Oh yeah, and I think that she could have also been like what you're describing, these others, where they think that they're another animal.
Well, I mean, me and Delta USA, a fellow Christian, we went through, we post artwork. I draw artwork of guns, and I draw flags and heraldry, and so to say, we go in this deviant art site. It's an art site, and the stuff that they consider art now is just completely degenerate. And one of the things that popped up was this girl who would consistently wear cat ears. Like, that's art. I mean, it was just bizarre. And I noticed she was in all kinds of weird stuff. Now, from what I've seen, a lot of these people are involved in Wiccan religions and, all kinds of, they're involved in the occult. Even the whole Otherkin, they have their own manifesto even where they claim that their souls are animals.
Right.
So it seems very occultic.
Yeah, it does tie in with the occult. It certainly doesn't tie in with Christianity, because Christ said, "I'm the truth, and the truth shall set you free." And this is all delusions and fantasy.
Well, I mean, that's what I think it all began. Well, it was beginning longer than this, but with Dungeons and Dragons, and a lot of the there's the World of Warcraft game where people have killed. What was it? There are people so addicted to World of Warcraft that they didn't eat for days and died.
Yeah.
And then there's a Second Life in all these games where role playing. Disconnected from reality, just complete role playing. And I'm not condemning role players out there. I'm just condemning, this gets obsessive on some people.
Yeah.
But have you ever heard of the Homosexual Manifesto, where they talk about how to destroy the family and all?
Years ago, I think I looked at it.
Yeah. Well, apparently the Otherkin have a manifesto. And I've noticed, like, all these, weird little groups tend to have manifesto. I think William Guy Carr, he called it the World Revolutionary Movement.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so they have the Elven Nation Manifesto, where I guess they identify as elves. Let me see if I can read this. If there's anything subversive in it, I think it was. I read it before. It was something bizarre. Oh, they say they shall not cease from exploration. Now, some parents would, or whatever, would probably see this. Oh, this is just kids, playing around. But no, this is serious. If you actually read it, they say, "I raise this rallying cry for all fellow non-humans around the world." It is, yeah. I mean, this is just. They're trying to turn this into like a civil rights crusade. Even though it's just absolutely not. It's just very bizarre. I mean, it is time those of Elven, Dwarven, and others stopped passively letting our heritage slip away in the mists of time. I mean, these people are actually claiming this is their heritage. Like,
we're living in an era where a lot of people are under mind control, and they even believe this stuff.
Yeah, and there was something. There was this Vice article who he spoke to a guy named John on Reddit. He was a 19-year-old from Knoxville, USA. Does that ring a bell? Anything in Knoxville?
Well, Knoxville is a programming center for trauma-based mind control.
So he says this kid in Knoxville says, "I am a red fox kin who was, as we call, awakened about a year ago." He said that awakening felt at least very relieving because everything seemed to come together for me. I started getting odd dreams where I would physically change into a fox, and they were very realistic, honestly. And after a while, in real life, it felt quite real, like I actually had a tail, I actually had ears, I actually had paws. This sounds demonic.
Yeah, it's a combination of demonology and mind control, and they use the demonology in the mind control, yeah.
I know they do the rituals in the mind control. Now, have you heard of the deep web?
No.
Now, they use this is kind of off topic, but on the deep web, there were people claiming there was this thing. They said it was an Illuminati ritual film, and it turned out it was from some Mexican movie. But I saw the footage. It looked like an Illuminati stuff. It looked realistic. Now, who's to say that they don't even use these movies in programming? Because some of these movies are just. And you said they did, right? They do.
Oh, yeah.
So do they use like these Rosemary's Baby type, crap? Or, these Jason movies.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's not what this was. This was some kind of Mexican movie where they had a satanic ritual scene that looked, just disgustingly real. After seeing that, I was like shocked. Like I thought it was real. Is this real? And there were people saying, "Oh, this video was taken from the deep web." It turned out it was taken from a Mexican horror movie. Actually, I don't want to just go out and say, "Look, this is proof of an Illuminati stuff." No, I actually do research, and I'll say, well, it could be used by the Illuminati, but this is from some Mexican movie, and and there's no doubt the Illuminati have their snuff films online. I don't doubt that.
Oh yeah.
I don't want to see them. You know,
Right.
this was something that somebody mentioned because I was doing research on what this deep web was, and they're saying this was this creepy video that appeared on the deep web of a satanic sacrifice, and I was like, let's see if this is real. And it looked very authentic, but it was taken, I found out eventually. I thought it was real for a while. I didn't publicly say it was or wasn't because I don't want to discredit myself. So I looked it up. It was from a Mexican horror movie, but it was traumatizing enough that if somebody were under hypnotism and they saw that, it would definitely mess with them.
Right.
At first, it was one of those things that I freaked out over. And then after a while, it was like, I'm just going to play with my tail for a minute, he said, every so often. John says he gets mental shifts. I could just be at home and all of a sudden, click, the fox part of me just kind of comes out for a while and then it just goes. This sounds like Manchurian. Oh, yeah, say what you're going to say, Fritz.
It's switching personalities?
Yeah, it sounds like a switching personality. It actually makes me think of the Manchurian Candidate, just with foxes. I mean, he thinks he's a fox instead of, I guess, going to kill somebody. But, it's very odd.
True that.
And then I've noticed these people get weird tattoos of the animal, and then there's another one who claims to be a fallen angel or something listed here. And they're trying to put this as the new, I guess, civil rights thing, like, otherkin. And so what that makes me think is, what is the future? Do these people, I know we're entering this whole transhumanist thing, Ray Kurzweil, and that's the Illuminati's next goal, is it?
Transhumanism, but also taking reproduction away from individuals and turning it over to the government, which they can produce people test tube wise in factories and then program to be whatever model they want. So we're really going into Brave New World.
Yeah, where they have the betas, the alphas, the deltas.
Right.
And they have different, classifications for everyone. And
that will be really nice for the military because they can create giants that are horrific and just, the ultimate soldier. Imagine having to face some horrible creature that's a giant.
Oh, wow. Well, it's like the days of Noah. I mean, I think that's really because think of it. I know that if you cut the limbs off of these things, from what I've heard, except for the head, I think the head is what really kills them. But if you cut the hand off, it grows back. Isn't that what they're doing research into?
Yeah, exactly.
And I have an article here. It was from a website I use, a news site, Return of Kings. And I'm not saying we should return to monarchy, but it just that's the title of the site. I don't want people saying, "Oh, you're a traitor to the United States, Wes. What are you promoting a monarchist web?" It's a very conservative website. I like it, but they have a lot of good articles. So, as to whether somebody agrees with monarchy, I obviously don't agree with monarchy if people watch my show. And they had an article, I have to find it, there was a Star Trek The Next Generation episode. Now, you've talked about how the space aliens, the Star Trek crap is used in programming.
Right.
Well, they talk about how in a Star Trek episode, they have an entire planet of androgynous beings. And that's the kind of, I guess, world we're entering into now.
Yeah.
I guess you could say a sexless society. Or in like
perverse too.
Yeah, perverse. And like it kind of reminds me, there was a scene in Demolition Man. Have you ever seen that movie?
Oh, it was a long time ago.
Yeah, there's a scene where that's a very interesting film where he wakes up and you know, he wants to get married, but they're not allowed to legally reproduce, I guess. And so they make him put on this helmet that gives them the orgasm feeling or something. Like, so, and that was like what my friend was saying. Why do the Illuminati promote porn? Well, porn basically, it actually takes, just like prostitution. You could replace that with a doll and it would be no difference. There's no intimate feeling like there is in marriage.
Right.
Between a man and a woman, there's no intimate feeling in pornography or prostitution. It's just, it's like, I guess, like a drug addict, injecting heroin. It's just they have to go get more. There's no real love in it.
Right. There's nothing real. There's no reality to it.
Exactly. There's no reality to it. It's just, it's relative. It's basically like this whole secular humanism, do as thou wilt, Crowleyan manifesto. But there are in Brave New World, like you mentioned, it's basically they want a cultureless society of just, I guess you could say, consumer culture, where I guess people just consume whatever the state gives them.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess they destroy, any kind of, connection to nation or, any kind of faith or, any kind of, other loyalties besides to the state. And from what I understand, this is the dialectic, right? This is like fascism and communism and liberalism, Marxism, just put together. It's just loyalty to the state and nothing else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's what a lot of these religions are. If you look at the Mormons, they're really kind of loosey-goosey as to what you believe. As long as you are loyal to the Mormon hierarchy and you make your ties, they give you latitude on what you believe. So a number of these groups are like that. It's important that you can believe whatever you want as long as you give loyalty to that power structure.
Yeah, it's just like as long as you don't state what you believe is another thing. There was a movie, I think it was Starship Troopers, where keep your opinions in your head,
Mm-hmm.
And I've noticed this. That's what this political correctness is, Well, if it contradicts the left-wing narrative, that they, because the cultural Marxists have basically taken everything over, and if you contradict cultural Marxism or you contradict this postmodern relativism,
Right.
then you're just a bad, evil, homophobic, I guess, I don't know, racist or something. They use all these words. Like, I've been called a racist.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been called all kinds of names. I mean, I know people who've been called fascists, like libertarians and stuff, and I'm thinking, why were they called fascist, or why have I been called fascist? It's stupid. It's absolutely stupid.
Right.
And I almost went to, at one point, a point where, okay, just call me all the names you want. And I still, I don't care what people call me. I mean, what I find funny is these are the same people who would get offended if you made a joke about Muhammad, but they can make all the jokes about Jesus they want.
Right.
And
there's a lot of contradictions think about the contradiction. There's no truth, and we know that's true. What?
Yeah.
If there's no truth, how do you know that that's true?
Yeah, exactly. It's a logical fallacy. There has to be truth.
Yeah, it's self-defeating.
Like I have 5 fingers. I mean, well, I have 4 fingers and a thumb. I mean, that's true. It's there. Well, everyone has their own truth, so I could have 6 fingers. I mean, well, Nephilim did, but you get what I'm saying? Like, it's like just looking, like just common sense. Well, Bruce Jenner, he's a man. Oh, no, he's a woman. Well, how is he a woman? Well, because he thinks he's a woman. But that's not true. Biology, physiology, psychology shows he's a man.
Mm-hmm.
But yet they don't care about that anymore. It's just, well, he's in his fantasy world. it's true, even though it's not true. It's just completely
Right.
bizarre. And, you know, it's hilarious. Like, these people will try to say, well, you know, these feminists, the feminists are the kind of the worst ones. Because they're trying to now, I guess, you know, get these kids who go around and I guess, you know, they say, oh, hi to a girl, and now that's considered rape.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, oh, that's rape code. And no, it's not. I mean, that has nothing to do with rape. You know, rape is forcing yourself onto a woman to have sex with you. She does not, but they're trying to expand the definition of rape, and those things do not count as the definition of rape.
If you're not careful as a college student and you talk kind of dirty to a girl, you can get kicked out of college for rape. It's happened to people before.
Yeah, and it's, you know, it's completely ridiculous, you know. And the Rockefellers, I do want to get on the topic of feminism. They funded a feminism, from what I know, to get women in the workforce.
Well, to destroy the family.
Yeah, exactly, because it destroys the family. And then also, I guess they have like a monetary benefit from it, right? They get more taxes.
People that I was bringing out of the Illuminati, they had sat in on conferences where it was specifically said in the 1950s, we are going to destroy the family. Wow. And they've done it. And in my lifetime, I've watched them destroy the family.
And I've seen it too. I mean, you know, my family is somewhat stable, but I mean, I see it, you know, just everywhere. I mean, I have relatives that are, you know, they're not, they don't know their real dad. And like, it's just completely just, maxed up. I mean,
pretty messed up.
I mean, everything is just completely, like, you have one kid over here, he doesn't know who his dad is, and then, you know, turns out his dad's the other guy.
Well, the marriage contract is the only contract that you can't defend in court. Think about it. You can defend other contracts, but not the marriage contract.
Yeah, it's marriage, traditional marriage is under attack. Familialism is under attack. The family is just under a complete assault. The nuclear family that helped build the West and build, you know, every culture.
Right.
It's just completely under attack.
The family has really been the foundation of everything. This nation is what it is because of
strong
families and family life. So destroying the family will also, in effect, destroy nationalism, the countries that were built by it.
Exactly, and that's their goal. You know, you destroy the family, you destroy the nation.
Right. And
they've already broken, I mean, just going to school today, they're teaching, with Common Core now, 2 + 2 does equal 5.
Uh-huh.
And that was another thing. There was a part in 1984 where he said reality is only in the mind.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what, now we're actually seeing that taught today.
Yeah, true.
I mean, so
this transgender thing is part of it, where you can be anything, anything goes.
Yeah.
It's a complete attack against Christ and truth.
Yeah, I mean, these people, you know, it's a godless society now. I mean, it's another thing I've noticed is, I mentioned this one person who's on my show. He kind of gets a little extreme, but he says some dumb stuff, and you know, he's a nice guy, and you know, he says a lot of stuff about the New World Order and stuff. But at the same time, he mentioned something that was kind of interesting to me: abstract art. Now, there's people like Salvador Dali, who, well, yeah, they did really good at abstract art, and you know, he says he does abstract art from what he told me. But now you have abstract art that's not even abstract. Well, it is abstract. It's just, but it's paintings of poop and urine. It's the artist, or I wouldn't call him an artist. It's like these guys that are urinating on paintings and then pooping on them. You know, for lack of a better word. Have you heard about this whole postmodern art?
No, it sounds like somebody using toilet paper and then deciding to call it art.
That's literally what it is. And they're trying to say, oh, well, that's because artists. Well, that's at a point where it's not art anymore. It's just, I could say my finger. Well, my finger is art. It was created by the one true God. But I mean, if I cut off my finger and said, look, art, and there's blood all over. Look, this painting I did with my blood. That's not art. It's just, the meaning of art has just become, broken down too. I mean,
if you look at the their plans, their written plans for themselves on how to destroy, the part of it is to steal people's identity and to dehumanize them. And they are doing both. They've stolen our identities and they have dehumanized us. They've degraded us.
Oh.
If you have someone who knows who he is, knows where he comes from, is dignified, you can't control them. But if the person's lost and they're clueless as to what they believe and who they are, and they've been degraded to an animal, you can control them.
Well, it's like
a control thing.
Yeah, it's like Albert Pike said, they'll be left without an ideal. So they'll be open to accept, the Luciferian doctrine.
Yeah.
I mean, it's another thing is like one of the worst things I've seen, like in the art thing I was putting out, they made this, I don't know where this was, in Mexico or someplace, where they made a Virgin Mary statue out of feces or something. And it was some sort of Marxist that made it.
Oh,
I mean, this is like, it's animalizing people. Or like, have you ever noticed that people years ago looked better than people now?
Well, you mean in terms of being healthier and more mature?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And speaking about bestiality, did you just see that Canada's legislature?
Oh my!
Did you see what they did? They allowed
it?
Bestiality. Their Supreme Court.
Oh well, in the NDAA here in America, they won't punish people for engaging in bestiality. In the military, in the NDAA.
So it totally boggles my mind that there's so many things going on, so many important issues, and yet Canada's Supreme Court would take the time to declare that some guy taking his daughter and forcing her into bestiality is okay.
Oh wow! Wait, they're legalizing incest too?
Well, no, not incest, but he wasn't. They didn't say it's legal for him to do it with his daughter. It's just legal for an animal.
Oh, that's sick. Well, think of it. He forced his daughter. I mean, even if we're going to use like legal terms to say like what Canada's doing to say that's okay. What about the daughter? She was forced to engage in bestiality.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. What boggles my mind is that they would bother even looking at it, because it's just like with our Supreme Court. Our Supreme Court will only hear so many cases. They pick the cases that they think are important, right?
Yeah.
So you can see where their minds are at. There's some Canada's Supreme Court obviously is a bunch of Satanists that got their minds in the sewer.
Well, that's, I think, is in the American Supreme Court. Why do you think they legalized gay marriage so easy?
Yeah.
I mean, like, they were putting that as, like, their main issue. I mean, like, that's, like, an important, all heralded issue, having gay parades and gay marriage. And, legalizing pornography. I know there was a time where porn was not legal, but now, you have all these people looking at porn now.
Right.
And, things have definitely changed. Now, what do you think the elites, their eventual goal is? I'm talking about World War III. Do you think they're ever going to have World War III, or have their plans been foiled?
Not in the near future, but yes, there's definitely another large war planned.
Mhm. Do you think it could be using this refugee crisis, using these Muslims? Because there's some people saying World War III is going to be fourth generation asymmetric insurgency all over the world, like various insurgent groups fighting with.
No, I think it's going to be an actual
Mhm.
war as we understand, like World War I, World War II.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be an actual war.
So not just like a world revolution of just a whole bunch of different groups killing each other, or that's the aftermath of World War III.
We get to have that mess before we get to that stage.
Oh, that's what they're.
I don't see a world war in the near future. I see a lot of other calamities.
Oh, like well, I mean, I could kind of see it already coming. Just look at what happened in, was it San Jose, where the what was it, the Bernie Sanders supporters, I think, beat up the Trump supporters.
Yeah, that kind of garbage.
I mean,
but worse than that, you know what's going on in Venezuela?
Oh yeah, they're close to a civil war.
Well, their economy totally collapsed.
Oh yeah.
People are eating one meal a day. They're hunting their neighborhoods for cats and dogs. There's no food in any of the stores. People that are managing to get food are going across the border into Colombia, and
yeah,
it's a total crash of the economy.
Now I'm trying to figure out now. Venezuela obviously never had good economic policies, but they did, from what I know, got away from the globalists, right?
Yeah, and they had a good economy at one point. They were based on oil.
Yeah.
And when oil prices have plunged, they weren't able to continue because their economy was based so heavily on oil. Fortunately, we're not that way. I mean,
yeah.
States like Texas have been hit really hard by the low oil prices. But we've been able to continue on because our economy is so diversified.
Well, I mean, the Saudis now, people say they have a monopoly on oil, which is true. So do you think, and I know when ISIS did their little, all their stuff that they did down in the oil fields in Iraq, that definitely hurt the price. But I'm trying to figure out, in the case of the Saudis, currently they say their economy has no debt. Now, what made the Illuminati want to team up with these Saudis? I mean, they don't seem trustworthy. They're not. I mean, they seem dangerous even to like their own family. I mean, they kill their own princes and stuff occasionally.
Yeah, they see eye to eye with these Illuminati kingpins. Well, the mentality is the same.
I mean, if you look at, I'm not sure on this, but I know you know who Sabbatai Zevi is. They say the Saudis are somehow related to him, according to one source. That the Saudi royal family itself might be an Illuminati bloodline.
Wahhabism, which is the brand of Islam in Saudi Arabia, actually got started by a Jew from what we know as Babylon.
Yeah, it was a Babylonian Jewish person.
Yeah,
Iraqi. So that's what I was thinking. Are the Saudi royal family part of this Illuminati bloodline? Are they considered a bloodline?
No, but they definitely are part of the network that works close with them.
It's sort of
They're very tied in, because you have to realize, how did the House of Saud become rulers over Saudi Arabia? It was they were put into power by the elite. Yeah. They made quid pro quo, where the elite helped them gain power over Saudi Arabia and the other tribes in the area and become the royal house in return for the Saudis supplying the West with oil.
Yeah. I mean, It's just like the case with the communist Chinese. The New World Order made a deal with them. We'll give you some of our technology, and
Right.
and what was that deal again? I know you have it in one of your books. They gave the Chinese, I think, a certain deal that if they decided to stop expanding, I think, or
Well, the benefits that the elite get is they can use the Chinese labor pool, basically as slave labor, to build the things that the West needs. And China then becomes wealthier, especially the ruling elite, because the big profits are made by the Communist Party leaders and their families. And then the basic people are just used as slave labor.
mm-hmm. And from what I know, that the Communist Party leaders make a profit, but doesn't it like help them technologically? From what I've heard, or
well,
they get Western.
In order for them to be able to produce what the West needs, we gave them technology.
Mm-hmm. And now they have similar weapons and stuff. What I've heard.
Yeah, Bill Clinton sold some of our very upper level military technology to the Chinese for profits. That was totally scandalous, but yeah, these people are not interested in America's security. They're interested in lining their pockets with profits.
Well, I don't know if you know who Michael Sparks is. I did an interview with him. I haven't uploaded so long, but we talked about how I don't know if this was in the interview because this might have been after, but there was a part where he mentioned how these. Oh yeah, it might have been in there right at the beginning. He talks about how he tried to get decent combat reform, and he found out the general who said he would look into it was a member of the Bilderberg group, and didn't give him any kind of decent reform.
Right.
And what he found out was this general was not looking out for the national interests of the United States, but for these global interests. Yeah, these people don't care about America.
Oh, exactly.
I mean, that's why I find it funny when these like Noam Chomsky type people like, oh, it's American imperialism. Well, maybe that's an arm of it. I don't know. I mean, it's not American imperialism. It's not done in the interest of America.
No, it's disguised as American imperialism.
Yeah.
It's really elitism.
Yeah, it's these people want a one world government under themselves.
Yeah.
And what I found funny about these Chomsky type people, they tend to forget, and in fact, I think Chomsky himself is some sort of agent. I mean, he's a communist, and there's just so many things wrong with it. But he supports open borders. Now, if he really cared about, the Black American working man or the white American working man, the legal immigrants, the ones that came legally, he would support closing the border, and he supports stricter restrictions to help the working people.
Yeah, all these people that believe in open borders, what should happen to them is all the homeless people in their town should be allowed to walk into their house and use their refrigerator and eat whatever food they have.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure they wouldn't like that. So, I mean, why do they want open borders? And, like you said in the interview, we need to take care of our own. And how many unemployed people in the Black community you were saying?
Oh, it's horrible. Chicago is just being ripped apart because the Black youth have no future. There's no jobs. And over Memorial Day, there was 40, 50 people shot.
Oh, yeah.
In Chicago. It's the city's falling apart, and that's where they had that home in prison that I warned about, which is there isn't any different between what's going on there and Nazi Germany.
Oh yeah, and from what I know, doesn't the Chicago they work with the gang members of the police and the left groups down there?
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's like from what I've seen, my research on Chicago, it's like the mob kept it under control, but now it's like a secret group of satanic cults have taken over, right?
Well, the gangs, yeah, and satanic cults, it's a mess.
Yeah.
And the police have turned some neighborhoods over where they don't even patrol them. They don't even go in there. And then on the flip side, they have this secret prison, this Holman Square police warehouse in the middle of Chicago's West Side, where they grab people off the street, and 7,000 people have disappeared into this prison.
It's like a death squad.
Oh, yeah. And on the second floor, they torture people. They even torture them to death. There's only been a few people that have ever managed to get out of that prison.
And it kind of reminds me of Auschwitz or a gulag. I mean, this is really sick. I mean, we're talking about is there mind control that goes on in this prison?
Oh, undoubtedly. Probably the people that work in it for the cops are under mind control.
Yeah, they don't remember it probably when they go there.
Yeah, and as brutal as they are, I mean, Chicago their police already have a reputation for brutality and corruption, but this takes it to a whole new level.
Yeah, and I've noticed there's all these leftist extremists, people that were terrorists are now in the Chicago Police Department and government. Like Bill Ayers. I mean, Bill Ayers, like, he just walks the streets freely. Have you ever heard of that? Like, I've heard that basically they've taken over.
Yeah.
Like the revolutionaries, the groups that would have considered, dangerous or subversive have now taken over Chicago, is what they said.
Yeah. Chicago's not only has that happened, but the city's in debt. It's bankrupt. So it's just like, and this is a major city. One of the largest cities in the United States is just a total mess.
Well, I have a friend from Chicago, Ethan. He was telling me how at the graveyard they find like corpses of cows and stuff, and like,
yeah,
he walks through it, like there's big corpses of cows, and there's like a satanic cult, and they all meet at a warehouse. He said that's their church. Apparently they bought this group bought this warehouse, and apparently that's the church of this cult. And he says that he would see people coming out with like all kinds of weird piercings. And he also mentioned what was the other thing? Yeah, that there was the police have investigated them that there's been human sacrifices, baby killings. I mean, we're talking some serious stuff now. From what I know, the occult part of Chicago, that goes back, right?
Well, the occult's been involved in Chicago, from the start. And Freemasonry has been very big in Chicago.
But where are these satanic cults coming from? Because I hear a lot of people from Chicago seem to talk about satanic cults.
Well, where do they come from? I mean, they're just, I don't know how to answer that question.
Is the OTO based in Chicago? It's like all this, like, I've noticed this like weird thing. Obama's from Chicago. Like, it's all like, it seems like there's a scene in Star Wars where he's like, it's a wretched hive of scum and villainy. And I mean, is that what Chicago is? Just it's attracting these people because of the corruption, or?
Well, yeah, it's Sin City.
Yeah, I mean, there's also Las Vegas too, which is that's more rich, but that's more like Sodom and Gomorrah. It's very corrupt, but at the same time, economically, it may be doing well. But
yeah, economically, Las Vegas is doing pretty well, and it hasn't fallen apart socially.
Yeah, I mean, it is degenerate though down there.
Well, there's a lot of churches in Las Vegas. You'll be surprised.
Oh, I wasn't sure. I mean, I thought it was like a sexual place.
No. Actually, Las Vegas is like one of these contradictions where the tourists are coming in and it's Sin City, but the people that live there, a lot of them are pretty conservative.
Oh, that's interesting. So I always assume that because they show it on TV, and I'm like, this place must be a pretty bad place. Like,
No, it's nothing like Chicago. Chicago has totally fallen apart, you know, into this violent chaos. But Las Vegas is quite orderly, and you don't see, you know, hookers generally aren't out there on the street.
In Las Vegas.
They have it pretty clean. Where I'm sure if you went to Chicago, you might be propositioned by a hooker. That's not gonna happen in Las Vegas. Prostitution's legal in Nevada, but they have it put in, it's low key, you know, so you go out to one of these ranches and it's legal, and it's cleaned up, you know. They want the tourist dollar.
Yeah, I kind of get what you're saying. So it's not as bad as Chicago, where there's a bunch of prostitutes like, hey, come over here, you know. Or there's the pimp. Now, I'm trying to figure out the human trafficking. You've heard of the DC Madam and all that. The Illuminati, now, where are they getting these prostitutes and things to mind control and then make them celebrities or what have you? Like, are these people bred from these families, or are they?
Yeah, some of them.
Or they pick randomly?
The trauma-based mind control has gone way beyond the Illuminati bloodlines. They're now doing it into the general population. And they take young girls and then they mind control them to be this stuff.
And from what I know, the Illuminati are not the only ones practicing this trauma-based mind control. There's other groups doing it now too.
Yeah, it's proliferated.
Like, I've noticed, like, there was like this weird thing I read. What was it? I think this is just disturbing. I think it was on Vice.com. Okay, here it is. Oh, it's on Wikipedia. Erotic hypnosis is the practice of hypnosis for sexual purposes. It's on Wikipedia. And I'm trying to figure out, this sounds a lot like what I've read from, you know, about the elites. I mean, they're a bunch of perverts, and, you know, I guess they, I don't even know what to say. I mean, they hypnotize these people, drug these people into engage in degeneracy and, you know, murder a baby. I mean, it gets even worse. Now, Tumblr, which has become a site for all kinds of leftist, somebody once said Tumblr, the blog, is basically, you know, it's filled with, you know, people claiming to identify as animals, gender fluid, you know, all kinds of, you know, goofy stuff that, you know, these people are obviously not. And it's also filled with pornography. Now, is there a correlation there with the leftist stuff and the pornography?
Well, yeah, it all goes together. It's, I guess that at the bottom line, it's rebellion against God. And if you're going to rebel, you know, you're going to do the opposite of what's natural.
Yeah, I mean, it's like this weird thing I've noticed with, like, from what I've seen with leftists, they tend to be like, they say, oh, I'm gender fluid, and, you know, there's all this, like, weird thing, and it's not all leftists. I understand there's probably there's normal leftists out there, if you could say a normal leftist, but I'm saying a lot of, you know, this postmodern, these kids on these campuses, like, have you seen do you know who Milo Yiannopoulos is?
No.
Well, he's a writer for the Breitbart newspaper, and he gave a speech. He's a conservative. I even think he's a homosexual, but he gave a speech at this thing, and then this woman who's like morbidly obese and a communist, she embraces being morbidly obese. Like, she thinks it's a great thing, and I guess she's bisexual or something. But she goes, get your hate speech, all this. She starts acting completely immature, and she's a admitted socialist and all this. But what I've noticed about this stuff, these people just seem to embrace destroying themselves. Quite literally. I mean, I just don't get it.
Right.
Like, I mean, why would you want to be morbidly obese? Like, I just wouldn't get that. Like, I don't get that.
Well, yeah, it's because you have a Christian mentality, but I knew a hedonist and he was proud of it. He was an atheist, and he did not agree with the concept that there's health food. He says it doesn't matter what food you eat. You might as well eat and enjoy whatever you want. You know, and you couldn't rationally talk with this person. Like,
Yeah.
it goes along with everything else we've been talking about. These people live in a fantasy world, and truth is whatever they want it to be. And so, you know, they want to eat whatever they want and disregard nutrition, and they don't want to believe that some things are better for your body than others. You know, and the thing is that this guy's health was poor, but he didn't have enough logic in his thinking to realize that there's a cause and effect, that the poor food he ate had to do with his poor health.
And, you know, it kind of reminds me, there's a book called Murder by Injection. I'm pretty sure you've read it or heard of it.
Yeah.
By Eustace Mullins. And
Right.
I think he goes into, like, how natural health is, you know, superior to, like, chemical health.
Right.
And I think he talks about dieting in there. And one thing I've noticed, and I'm not sure if this was in the book. I have the book upstairs. But it seems like these people are, like, these are, like, it's kind of ironic. Michelle Obama claimed that she wanted the children to be healthy, right?
Okay.
She herself eats completely unhealthy. And at the same time, she was basically trying to force what parents can and cannot put in their kids' lunches. Yet at the same time, the movement that is associated with her, the left, supports this fat acceptance movement.
Yeah.
So it's like, which is it? Like, do they want to, we don't want, you know, big corporations like McDonald's, or fat acceptance, which a lot of these people are, you know, they're for McDonald's, eat, you know, all of that.
Right.
So what, you know, why are they so contradictory to their own statements?
Well, they run these campaigns to look like they care and they're ethically superior to other people, but it's all just a front, a show.
Yeah, I mean, because I've noticed how that campaign just ended. Like, she cared about, like, she was on this health crusade, and now it's just over.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't seen it recently. It seems more or less that now they've switched over. They went from that to, like, fat acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the whole thing with the veganism. And, you know, I'm not condemning vegans here, but to me, that's just as bad as the obesity acceptance. Because I think, doesn't veganism also have its health issues?
Not necessarily. It depends on how a person practices it.
Yeah, because I know this person. This person clearly is not in good health, but he says he's a vegan, but he's also for fat acceptance. And I thought the goal of being a vegan was to try to be healthy.
Right.
But this person is not a vegan because they want to be healthy. They're a vegan because I guess they worship nature or some weird thing, and they're a leftist, and, you know, they have all these weird views on things. In fact, the same person who I have seen on YouTube, because, you know, really how I heard about this person was I found it from, you know, a group of friends I was chatting with. I have a buddy, and he's not a Christian, but, you know, I have problems with him because he says some stuff and that I disagreed with, but he also says stuff I agree with occasionally. He is a friend of mine, Nero. He calls himself Nero of Rome, which I don't understand why anyone would call themselves that. It's just stupid. You know, Nero, he watched Rome burn. But besides that, Nero of Rome, he's a friend of mine, told me about this person. Like, he says, the most ridiculous person you're ever going to see. He said, it's this vegan anarchist. And he wants to abolish civilization, and he believes in all, like, just abolishing just normalcy. Why are there, you know, and I could just not get that. Why would somebody want to destroy healthy relationships in communities and just embrace just pure decadence and just destruction of civilization. Like now there's like a group, like they got these weird, you know, political and religious cults that just embrace this. I mean, I think it started with the Antoine LaVey. I mean, I know it came before that if you look at the Jacobins and all, but I think Antoine LaVey, did he kind of popularize that?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, and yeah, it goes along with that whole thing of do what thou wilt.
Shall be the whole of the law. And so, you know, I mean, and if you really think about that, there was something I was reading about. They have a political ideology called illegalism. Have you ever heard of that?
No, not in those words.
It's an anarchist philosophy developed primarily in France, Italy, Belgium, and Switzerland during the 1900s. The illegalists openly embraced criminality as a lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, apparently it's a very extreme form of nihilism.
Mm.
But it proved to be highly, you know, controversial.
Sure.
And even among, you know, these radical, you know, leftists and all, it was controversial. But I mean, this is what we're seeing, something that is just an all-out attack on Christian civilization.
Definitely.
So what have you seen any hope for America? I mean, when we're in this like postmodern age where it's just homosexuality and promoting obesity and you know, even promoting murder, I think it's going to get worse than. I mean, abortion is terrible, but I think, you know, when are they going to start, you know, endorsing human sacrifice as a religious freedom?
Oh yeah.
Or, you know, endorsing you know, like we've already seen them endorsing pedophilia. I remember an article on this leftist propaganda site called Salon, where they were endorsing pedophilia. So, do you think they'll ever just purely embrace paganism in its, you know, most decadent form, like the cult of Baal?
Oh yeah, it's happened before in history, and that's where we're headed.
I know, like in what is it? Didn't like after during the French Revolution they realized that they couldn't have a pure atheistic society, so they embraced paganism.
Well, they've tried. Yeah, in the French Revolution, for instance, they tried to embrace atheism, and some of their concepts that they tried to down the people of France didn't work out. You know, they tried to rewrite everything.
Yeah.
You know, like for instance, having 10-day weeks and stuff like this,
yeah.
and it didn't work out.
Yeah, and didn't they even try to endorse like when that failed, they actually went full on pagan, right? They actually endorsed cult. Do you remember? Yep. Now, is that the thing that Albert Pike is talking about, the pure doctrine of Lucifer?
Mm-hmm.
Because I've been trying to figure this out. I know that there's somebody who wrote a book called The Luciferian Doctrine. That was Albert. Was that Albert Pike or Blavatsky? It was one of them. I'm pretty sure they met. I'm not sure. I could be wrong on that. Is there a connection there between Blavatsky and Pike?
Not that I know of where they personally met, but they were both promoting Lucifer about the same time.
Yeah. I remember hearing something like how they knew each other. Was it? There's a guy named David Livingston. I think he says that they met in some Asian country.
Oh, well, that could be.
I'm not sure. I know, what was it? Tibet. I know a lot of these people are into Buddhism, and I've noticed Buddhism has become embraced by, you know, a lot of people, you know, on different, you know, like people that were no longer, you know, that were once, you know, that are atheists. A lot of them become Buddhists.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Alfred Pike did write the Luciferian Doctrine. That wasn't written by Blavatsky. HPP. But she did write about the Luciferian doctrine in her books, so there is an overlap there.
And now I'm pretty sure I can understand. It's basically the Antichrist religious system that's coming.
Yeah.
Because what is it? Thesis plus antithesis equals synthesis.
Yeah.
So I mean, well, World War I got rid of the monarchy, right? It established dictatorship. It got rid of republics and monarchies.
Well, to a limited degree, what they set up in World War I was a limited world government, and then in World War II they got the United Nations, which was a further step towards world government. And League of Nations was World War I, and World War II created United Nations, and then World War III will just take it to the final step,
which is world government. And that's a very easy, that's correct. You're 100% right. But what I was saying was, you had they were looking for a solution. Monarchy versus republic, equals dictatorship. And the reason why I was saying that was because even like the so-called like democracies post World War I were very dictatorial. I mean, look at revolutionary Catalonia. I mean, these places were terrible places. And even, under FDR, it was a dictatorship.
Yeah.
And then the Second World War was about destroying. But yeah, this is what World War I was about. The political system is what he said. And like you said, it brought in the League of Nations. And then World War II brought in the United Nations. And then World War III will bring in the final world government. But I was just saying this is another side issue. Like World War II was about chauvinism versus cosmopolitanism. And now we have people having the concept of loyalty not to ethnic nation but to state. And then the Cold War was about economics, communism versus capitalism, and now we have like a weird technocratic, globalist, socialist, liberal, like neoliberal kind of socialist ideas. And so World War III, I guess, would be about religion. So, like, of course, that brings in the final world government, where it's absolute world government. But, they're going to have World War III. Do you think World War III will be a religious thing mainly, like Pike said?
Yeah, Pike has been accurate so far.
So, I mean, like, will it be like the Christians versus the Muslims?
Something like that. Yeah, because those are the two largest religions, and they're the ones that they're able to get fanatics. There are certain Christian groups that are willing to engage in warfare, and then the Muslims are very militant. So yeah, you could get quite a war going. You see that happening in Europe right now as a reaction to all of the criminal things that the Muslim terrorists are doing, or the Muslim immigrants are doing.
Yeah.
The Christians are becoming militant.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, especially in Iraq and Syria, there's Christian militias now that are fighting against the Muslims.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, and then the reason why I mentioned like the thing of, the whole, they're letting in the refugees, right? That could result into a civil war into Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with Brexit and all now, there's people leaving the EU. So I think, Britain might be a little bit spared if they leave the EU. And, Nigel Farage or somebody like that gets in power, they might be able to prevent some of it, which is what I've noticed. But a civil war in Europe would be just bloody.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have the Muslims and the leftists versus the, I guess, the nationalist groups. And then you have the neo-Nazis in Europe, the remnants of the werewolf movement. I mean, I think that, what was the CIA project where they had the stay-behind armies in each European nation?
I'm not sure. You mean the America had army stay behind when the Russians took over, or
like secret terrorist groups that they had planned to, in case of a Russian invasion, I think.
who?
Oh yeah, the Operation Gladio.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
because I think if there was a civil war in Europe, the Russians would definitely move in to try to, to take the spoils, I guess, right?
Well, they might.
They might
They
not. I mean,
might not. And a lot of people have. How to say this? It's been popular during the Cold War to picture the Russians as expansionists,
yeah,
but the United States has been more expansionist than Russia.
yeah, you're right. So I'm trying to figure out like if a civil, because we're talking about just a Europe-wide civil war, maybe leading into World War III or post World War III. Just people fighting amongst each other for different, I guess, religious reasons. Because I talked about, this is why I didn't delete the this thing, because I wanted to keep that in mind, because it just seems like we're entering like a cataclysmic event of just social conflict of people killing each other. I mean, it seems pretty serious. Because there was that was in this other discussion I had with this individual, but from what I'm seeing here, it seems as if they want everything divided. And now there's Gladio B, which is to activate all the Muslim terrorist groups. Now, are these people, these Muslims, are they programmed?
Some of them are, yes, because trauma-based mind control spread to the Middle East.
Mm-hmm. And so I guess some of these people are broken down too, where they've programmed these people to be, I guess, terrorists.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And does ISIS engage in programming? I'm trying to figure out is.
Well, ISIS ties in with Western intelligence agencies.
So yeah.
Yeah, so that gives you your answer right there.
Yeah, I mean, I know that, but I was trying to say that, is there like, this is going to sound a little exaggerated, but I'm not trying to exaggerate this, is there like a place like maybe in Raqqa or whatever where they take, I don't know, captured people and they, drug them and stuff and beat them up around and hypnotize them?
Uh-huh.
That definitely seems like something they would do. I heard of the Red Room, where they have ISIS has snuff films, and everyone knows ISIS has snuff films, but I'm wondering if they're in bed with these elites selling them stuff. We know they're selling them oil and things like that. Let me actually get that article up. ISIS engages in homosexuality. Because what is that ritual the Illuminati do where they marry like they marry like a kid to multiple people?
Don't know what that.
It's like a gang rape. Like they make them married to multiple people, I guess, in the coven.
Don't know that offhand.
Yeah. But according to one, this is in one interrogation by Iraqi officials of an ISIS terrorist who carried out 7 beheadings, the terrorist not only confesses the gruesome beheadings he carried out, but also confesses the dark side, which is virtually unknown regarding sadistic homosexual group marriages and rituals. In this incredible story, Shubat.com translates the short testimony of one of 11 recruits who were sodomized by the ISIS prince Abu Allah. And the video, I can't find the video. Abu Allah made a fatwa permitting himself to marry and sodomize his recruits, with the exception that no man can sodomize him. ISIS is truly the manifestation of the purest form of the homosexual agenda, sodomizing men as both torture and pleasure, and killing those who disagree with them. The incredible testimony confirms the documented. Now, I do think he writes this a little sensational, but that's
ISIS is totally corrupt. And
oh yeah,
it's the Western intelligence agencies that are backing it and put it together are totally corrupt. So there is no limit to the corruption that they'll go to.
I agree. But I mean, it's just the words he uses, like the incredible testimony, which it is an incredible testimony, but I'm saying I don't think it's that incredible. Like I wouldn't be surprised. Like, you don't have to use sensational language to make this like, but I think it's a good writing style. I'm just kind of critiquing that. But I think it's, pretty interesting. But this is what makes me think about this as being, some sort of ritual abuse type thing. It was said that ISIS, I think this is real. This is like, do you think that this could be programming? It was said that ISIS has been raping men in a ceremony it describes as marriage and records them to use as blackmail and force them to join.
Well, that's a form of torture to control people's to control what they're going to do. Yeah.
That's the simplest form of mind control. That's like putting somebody's arm behind their back and you making them say uncle.
Right, exactly. It's like putting a gun to somebody's head and say, do this,
Yeah.
It's a very crude form of controlling someone, but ISIS is willing to do that.
And so they got the interview here, and it's kind of hard to read. The stuff they say is pretty graphic. The ISIL elements admitted what they called marriage was in fact rape. They said that every new member of the group was raped. The footage of the rape would be used as blackmail in the event of the new recruit refusing to participate in actions. I mean, we're talking about some very sick stuff.
Yeah.
And then there's ISIS. There's a link that this was apparently posted deep on the internet. It's on Live Leak. I'm gonna kind of mute this, but they call it the ISIS Red Room, and they claim that they interrogate this guy. I don't know what they do to him. I'm not gonna watch it any further than that. I guess they killed him on camera, which that's not really surprising, but apparently. Okay, ISIS Red. A darkness, I promise. Live stream torture. Oh, no, it was somebody else who was torturing ISIS jihadists. I actually thought it was ISIS putting something on the... Well, I can understand why they're doing that to ISIS. I'm not condoning torturing people. I'm just saying that I guess it's just somebody getting payback on them. I mean, there's the Shiite groups, right, that are...
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I wouldn't surprise me if they would film, torturing people either. I mean, I've seen this guy named... he's like this anti-ISIS commando, and he's a Shiite. And they call him, I guess, Arab Rambo or something. And they have footage of him burning an ISIS guy alive on I guess, like a kebab machine or something. It was very sick. But, it seems like... I'm trying to figure out what are the Iranians all about in all this? Are the Iranians good guys or bad guys, the government of Iran?
Well, the government of Iran is not good guys, and
yeah, are they fighting the New World Order? Because I hear like this something, where some of these people, the Iranian government is fighting the New World Order, and I'm like, I don't know if that's exactly true.
No, they're in league with Russia and China, and China's been making contributions to Iran to help them build themselves up, like put in a subway to Iran.
Yeah.
But Iran's in a very strategic position, and there's an ancient. It goes back to the ancient prophecy back in the book of Daniel in the Bible, which is says that Iran will become very aggressive in the end days.
Yeah,
and so you see that happening. They're becoming very increasingly aggressive. They're fighting proxy wars all through the Middle East, like Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, Iraq. They've got proxy wars going on, and they're clashing with Saudi Arabian-backed forces in all these different countries. So, there's nothing positive about the Iranian government. I have a friend who came from Iran, and he's still in touch with people in Iran. So he gives me feedback of how corrupt the Iranian the Iranian government is actually the religious leaders, and they have totally lost any credibility to the rank and file people.
So they're actually just as bad as the government here.
Pardon me?
They're just as bad as the government here or in China or in any of these countries.
Oh yeah. And
the reason why I mention are the Iranians good guy, because I see this like pro-Iran propaganda constantly posted by some in the Patriot movement, Truth movement, and like I still consider them fellow patriots and all, but why promote Iran? I'm pretty sure they really genuinely do hate the United States, the government of Iran. So I mean, I honestly think the Iranian Ayatollahs would work with the New World Order if they were given a good deal. Because from what I understand, these people aren't even that genuine Islamist, right?
Well, they're Shia. That gets into a religious debate.
Oh, I didn't mean like that. I mean like they actually. What I mean, they're very corruptible. Like they're not very religiously driven, is what I meant.
Well,
because I've heard that somewhere.
They've got a lot of religion, but whether they're spiritually minded is another thing. Because
they're not Christians.
No.
Yeah.
Well, we've gone quite a long time.
Oh, yeah.
I'm wondering if we aren't getting to the point of wrapping it up here.
Yeah, I want to wrap it up about like tell us a little more about what you've dealt with when dealing with trauma-based mind control victims. Like, what is the step to deprogramming these people? I mean, these people must suffer a lot from what they've been through.
They suffer every day from it, and if a trauma-based mind-controlled slave is being used, they like to continue ongoing traumas to keep them dissociated. So they're constantly through their whole life being abused. If you read Kathy O'Brien's book, for instance, Transformation of America, you see how the trauma is just ongoing day after day.
They get flashbacks of it occasionally, or?
Yeah. But what really gets really nightmarish is when the mind control starts breaking down, and then all of these fragments of trauma memories start resurfacing, and then the person's just flooding with all kinds of horrible things in their mind.
Now, I don't want to get in, too deep of personal questions here about, Kathy O'Brien, but I've heard like the guy is a CIA agent who, or something, or her husband's a CIA agent.
Yes.
Now, he escaped from the New World Order, or is he? Because I've heard rumors about that.
Well, Mark says that he's part of a good faction of the CIA that wants to stop the mind control.
Oh, so he's still an agent.
Well, he's been CIA. I guess if you work off of the principle that you don't leave the CIA, he's still active with the CIA. But he's always said from the beginning that there was a faction of the CIA that was horrified about the mind.
And I can imagine that. I agree that probably exists. I mean, I imagine a lot of things are factioned off now. I mean, I don't think it's just all united,
So, so this faction of the CIA that's against the trauma-based mind control has helped him. And he had to go off into hiding to deprogram Kathy O'Brien.
Yeah. And I've heard, I talked with an individual, Eric John Phelps, about that. He said he met this guy. And he said he thought he was pretty decent. Now, I'm not endorsing Eric John Phelps by a long shot, but I have talked with him about specifically Kathy O'Brien and, this, I think it's Mark is his name, or?
Mark Phillips?
Yeah, Mark Phillips. Kathy O'Brien and Mark Phillips. And he said that he met him and they were, he said, well, you should start talking about the Jesuits, Mark. And I was just, when Eric said that, I'm like, oh, I mean, the whole, like, that's another, and before we conclude, the whole Jesuit thing, like this whole blame the Jesuits, that's a whole occult thing in itself, right?
Well, the Jesuits are totally corrupt, and they are one organization that the
I agree,
elite work through.
But I mean, this whole just blame, it's all the Catholic Church's fault,
Yeah. That's disinformation. That comes from the Adventist movement.
And it comes from Freemasonry too, right?
Right. The Adventist movement came out of Freemasonry.
Yeah, I mean, and so the Jehovah's Witnesses and their early publications are all anti-Catholic. And here's the thing that I wanted to get to with the witnesses. I remember you had a lot of their old material, right? And you looked through it through each passing year. Tell the audience what you found from that.
Well, I was a missionary for Witness Incorporated. We were a Christian organization that wanted to bring Jehovah's Witnesses to Christ. We had two comprehensive libraries, one in California and one in Oregon, where both libraries had everything the Watchtower Society had ever put out, every pamphlet, record, book, everything from day one. And if you went in and researched like I did, there were all of the major doctrines the Watchtower Society has flip-flopped back and forth on. At one point it believed in war, then it didn't believe in war. I mean, the Watchtower Society says that their doctrinal changes are like tacking into the wind, where they're getting better and better. But really what's happened is that flip-flopped, and they've gone back and forth. They've made all kinds of false prophecies.
Now they've believed in the rapture for some time. But they actually subliminally promote a pre-trib rapture. They just don't call it that. In some of their
really?
They say the governing body will like disappear at one point. The anointed, but then the others will be left on the earth to, I guess, deal with the tribulation. It sounded like left behind, but they just said, well, we shouldn't call it a rapture. That's an unbiblical term.
Huh.
But
so now there's new doctrine there.
Yeah, I mean, I think Russell believed that, right?
Russell had his people waiting there because they thought that they were all going to be raptured up. Yeah.
Yeah, and another thing, what I wanted to make when I said the research, you realize that they attacked every other they attacked Christianity except for every other religion. That's what I wanted to talk about.
Well, yeah, in reading through the literature over many years, you got the distinct impression that it was just Christianity and the Catholic Church that they were against. They never attacked these other religions. So I think it was 1990, I just sat down and I took the literature from 1 year and I went through and read everything and marked, what religions were attacked. And they did some generalized, Buddhism or Islam is not good. Yeah. A few little things like that, but all the specific hammering that they did, the details like exposing a corrupt, a scandalous activity by somebody, it was all directed towards Christianity.
Yeah, or like the doctrine of this comes from this, and that is why we don't believe that. But
this is a worldwide organization, but the only enemy that they strongly attack is Christianity.
Yeah, and I've noticed that too, and I've noticed in a lot of their, if you look at Rutherford's literature, very vehemently anti-American. As well, and they have a lot of generalizations. There was a part in I think it was Be Wise as Serpents where you talk about how they actually have a vision of a global dictatorship.
Yeah.
And they talk. In fact, I remember remembering as a kid where we learned, oh well, we're going to clean up the bodies for like half of what?
Yeah.
And to me,
if you actually go through, which I did, and I researched comprehensively what they said was going to happen when this new world happens, It's a new world order. I mean, it's horrifying. And they even say in one place that the occult is going to rule the world.
Yeah, and another part, I know that they talk. What was the one thing about a spiritual secret police that would be summarily executing thought criminals, essentially?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's pretty scary, and I remember as a little kid growing up with that and reading about, well, we're going to be, the buzzards. Well, and the Bible talks about the buzzards, but they were talking more or less about cleaning up the bodies with like bulldozers. Yeah. It sounds like, the Holocaust. It's like, or the Holodomor. You know what I mean? Like a mass, like Pol Pot would be a very good. It actually does. A lot of it reminds me of the Khmer Rouge.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very bizarre. But anyway,
yes, but this paradise that they're predicting is right in line with what the Illuminati elite would want.
Yeah, it's pure, it's global genocide. And what was the other thing they said that the revolution? You were mentioning how they didn't they have a thing with Charles Taze Russell says that they'll work with revolutionaries, or they compared Armageddon to the French Revolution when they destroyed Christianity.
Exactly. They said that this paradise that they're looking forward to will be like the French Revolution. When I read that, I was like, whoa. Oh, they said that even like there was something in it was like 91 or 90 or 91. I'd have to go back and look at the exact reference where they said that the millennium would be like the French Revolution. Well, if you think about what that statement implies, whoa, they were chopping heads off.
Oh, yeah, and I have a quote from one of their old watchtowers in 1882. They said, okay, we expect, this sounds like Albert Pike, we expect that this distress and trouble will all come about in a very natural way. Very many scriptures seem to teach that the kingdoms of the earth will be overthrown by the rising of the people, goaded to desperation by the oppression of unjust governments, such as rising and overturning. Socialists, communists, and nihilists of today are organizing for and will gladly bring about when they can. And then they say in Zion's Watchtower, November 1884, the other one was October to November 1884. What? Is it the Lord that thus make the earth desolate? Yes, Isaiah also expresses it, saying, behold, the Lord maketh the earth empty, and maketh it waste, and turneth it upside down, and scattered abroad the inhabitants thereof. But have we not just seen that the trouble and destruction is to be accomplished by a general uprising of discontented and ungovernable people, by such a revolution as communists, nihilists, and socialists contemplate? Yes, as verse 6 states it, the heathen let nations rage, and as a consequence, the kingdoms were moved. And, and then the earth melted. And then, but here's the part that really kind of disturbs me. Who then are the king? Who? This is what they're saying. They're not condemning these communists. They're acting like they're God's army. I'm going to read this. This is what I think you should use this if you ever in some of your research. Who then are with the King of Kings in this conflict? This was in Zion's Watchtower, January 1886. And I know when was the French Revolution one written? That was a recent, like back in the 90s. For that
Right.
So this is not something new to them. They say, who then are with the King of Kings in this conflict? Those close to him, his regular army are few, a little flock. Among these, his followers, all faithful and true. Are not many great or rich or mighty according to the course of this word, but they are all rich in faith, chosen and faithful. But the new and rightful king has an immense army of irregulars in every kind of uniform except the white of the regulars. Communists, infidels, socialists, anarchists, and nihilists, all these fight in the battle of the great day. Though ignorant of him whose kingdom they help to establish, they are the vultures of Revelations chapter 19 to 17, 18 to 21, who battle for plunder and get their fill in the overturning of the earth's kingdoms. Because the time is come for the Messiah to take dominion of earth and to overthrow the oppressors and corruptors of the earth. Revelations 19 and 15 and 11, 17, and 18, preparatory to the establishment of everlasting peace upon the only firm foundation of righteousness and truth. Zion's Watchtower, January 1886. So they act like these are going to be their co-rulers.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to figure out is, okay, and they're saying, oh, well, they're overthrowing corruption. But these guys seem just as bad as what you just overthrew, if you look at history. So, I mean...
Well, Charles Taze Russell's wife, who did a large share of the writing for the Watchtower Society, she was a socialist, and her father was a Freemason.
Yeah, and here's another one. What Pastor Russell said, page 769. I'll actually send you the link to this on Facebook. As a matter of fact, the opposing hosts of this last final conflict are gathering at this present. The spirit of revolution and anarchism in the world is generating a boiling, seething condition of affairs. The warring political factions, the militant suffragists, the socialists, the nihilists, the anarchists, the labor organizations, the capitalistic combinations, and the ecclesiastical system, all in opposition to each and all, are rushing headlong to the mountain of destruction, Armageddon. The nations of the earth are already gathered together, forming one vast community of general interests, commercially, financially, and politically, and associated by the modern methods of communication, the cables, wireless telegraphs, railways, and steamship lines. Armageddon will truly be an awful place of destruction, with all the world engaged in the last final conflict. Very disturbing. I mean, this is Albert Pike type stuff. I mean, this is, you know, and this is supposed to be from a Christian organization, you know, but yet they're calling, you know, anarchists and communists and, you know, all these different, you know, groups that hate Christians as like heroes.
Yeah.
I mean, now, is that what you observed in when you wrote the French Revolution thing, or have you seen those ones before? Or?
Well, I was familiar that they promoted socialism back there. Like I say, Charles Taze Russell's wife was a socialist. So, yeah, there was a number of things, including Zionism, that they
Promoted.
that the Watchtower Society heavily promoted.
It's like it kind of reminds me of, didn't Rutherford, which kind of changed to fascism? They became pro-Nazi under Rutherford for a short period of time, and then Father Coughlin, I think, called them out, and you know he was pro-Nazi too, so they had a problem with the Nazis after that, I think.
I don't remember Rutherford becoming Nazi. No.
Oh no, he wrote. Or no, what was it? He wrote an article praising Hitler or something.
That would be new to me. They tried to link the Nazis and the Catholics together, and you know,
yeah,
the Jehovah's Witnesses ended up being arrested by the Nazis.
Yeah.
During World War II.
But I was wondering, like, I've heard this whole thing that what is it, like Hitler and like in Russia, like he thought the Jehovah's Witnesses were or no, it was Himmler said the Jehovah's Witnesses had admirable loyalty, like brainwashed loyalty, that was good enough for the SS to model themselves after, he said.
Well, yeah, the Nazis had certain plans, but we've gone longer than what I have set aside for this.
I think we should probably end this here. I mean, this was a good conversation.
Yeah.
But anyway, Fritz, it was great having you on the show. I mean, I think this would be a pretty good episode.
Yeah,
I think people will get really informed from this.
A lot of things to think about.
Yeah. So this is Truth Talk Radio, and we have we had our guest Fritz Springmeier. I'm your host, signing off.